What drives the cost of tax preparation? Happy tax season, everybody. We are right in the thick of it. So here are some resources for today's show. There's a couple good articles in here. One from 2017, and I'll touch on these in a couple minutes here. Also, the link to my website and to the recording of this YouTube live presentation. The slideshow for this will be saved out on Google Slides and also in SlideShare. So by all means, feel free to go and pick those up, and you'll be able to get the live links there as well as in the show notes below this video. So taxes. This little picture here I thought was kind of funny as I was digging through some pictures to put in the slide deck. It says IRS Intimidation Retaliation Service. I don't know why there's a weird border on this, but I thought the image was funny nonetheless. So let's connect. Chris@BetterWayCPA.com, 843-608-0298. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Quora, where I post every single day, Instagram, and Pinterest. How many CPAs do you know are out on Pinterest? Good question, right? I didn't even know that I was on Pinterest until just a little while ago. My marketing folks have hooked me up with that. So kudos to them. If you have any questions, by all means, please ask away. So what's up, everybody? My name is Chris Hervochon with SOAR, a Better Way CPA, and I'm going to be walking you through this little problemo here today. And basically, the problem is you have to file a tax return every single year. The question that you have is, should you use a tax software? Should you use a free tax software? If so, should you go to a tax preparer? The fees between the free tax preparation software and go into a CPA, they vary widely, right? So, what's the difference? What drives those prices? Well, we're going to talk about that today. There are three things that drive those I'm going to cover. So number one, cheaper labor. And if you've ever seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, where he goes to work at the chicken farm and then the guy pays him in cash, he's like, hey, I forgot my checkbook. And then he goes home, counts his change, he goes, $6, it's like $1 an hour. Well, cheaper labor obviously is one way to drive down the cost of your product or service, right? So preparing tax returns is the same thing. So the company that prepares your tax return, they need to make money too to stay in business and feed their families. Well, one way that they can drive up their margins is to cut their costs, but also cut their input costs, and input costs being labor and tax software as well, but labor is the biggest one there. So cheaper labor, that's always one way to cut costs, right? Okay, number two, spend less time on your tax return. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's effectively cutting the cost of your labor. You're just churning out more tax returns every hour, every day. You can pay a little bit more of a wage, but you expect those people to produce more, right? So spend less time on your particular tax return. Now, what does that look like? Well, I had a client that came to me from a big box retail store. They said, this is a couple weeks ago, and they said, Chris, this tax bill looks ridiculous. It's like $18,000 in a total tax bill. And I said, well, let me take a look at it. And, once you start to dig and you ask some questions and you ask for some additional documentation, and then, you look through the tax law and you apply the applicable tax laws to their situation based on the facts and circumstances. And in a lot of instances, you can drive down that tax bill, right? So long story short, we were able to take that $18,000 tax bill that they were given by the big box retail folks and turn that into a $1,900 refund. And that was based on just one thing, on how the treatment of the sale of their home was being treated. But if you've got to turn out, X number of tax returns per day or X number of tax returns per hour, you don't have the time to ask people the questions that are meaningful and to go and take their answers and take their fact pattern and go and research in the tax code, how the tax code can impact them and their facts and circumstances. So that's another way to decrease costs. Okay, number three. This is my favorite. So you become the product. Think about Facebook. And on Facebook, you are the product. Tax prep free or free tax prep software, same thing, right? So the company is going to take your data and they're going to sell it, and or they're going to upsell you. It's a good example of that. I had a new client come to me last week. I said, hey, I'd like to take a look at your 2017 tax return to see, what's going on there. See if there's anything that I should be concerned about that should carry forward to 2018, stuff like that. And she said, okay, well, I used TurboTax last year. Let me go fetch my tax return. She comes back and she says, TurboTax free is holding my return hostage. They want me to pay money for it, and I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay, well, that's your choice, but that's a good example. Now, there's millions of people using these free tax softwares who are going to have to go back and pay for their tax returns later. So a good example, 2 years from now, you want to go buy a house. The mortgage lender is going to say, hey, we want to look at your last 3 years of tax returns. And you're going to say, well, they're in TurboTax. Let me go get it. Well, you're going to have to go pay for those. And, whether or not you want to do that later, that's the upsell, right? That's up to you. So those are pretty much the three ways that the tax return prep can be, or the cost of tax return prep can be driven down, right? It's basically a race to zero right now. And when you get to zero, you turn into the product, not the tax return, right? So the role is totally flipped. So a couple of final thoughts, and these are my Jack Handey deep thoughts, right? And I'm dating myself, but Jack Handey was an awesome skit that they used to do on Saturday Night Live that I miss very much. So when your tax preparer has to rush through your file, they're less likely to do research on your behalf. They're less likely to ask you questions that may drive down your tax liability, do research, ask you for additional documents, those sorts of things. They can't. They just don't have the time, and they basically have to rush through your file. So that's one way that they can drive down the cost. There's always going to be a place for a live tax preparer, I think. Now, this is one of the conversations that's going on in the profession right now, but at the end of the day, humans are social beings. Humans want to interact with other humans. I've got tons of clients coming to me saying, hey, I used TurboTax last year. I'm not sure if I did it right. I'm not sure if I did it right the year before. And I just want some certainty around my tax situation, because really everybody is deathly afraid of the IRS. They want nothing to do with the IRS. They don't want to get correspondence from the IRS. They don't want the IRS agent to show up at their house. None of that. And so, they want that peace of mind, and they also want that social interaction with their CPA where they can just pick up the phone, ask them questions, while they're going through the interview process to prepare the tax return, things like that. People want to talk to a live human being. And in general, I think you're going to see this with a lot of different products and services over time. We're going to see the shift away from the robot, automated type interaction that we're seeing so much of now back into, I should say, that human interaction. That's going to become more important. Right. And then number 3, this is the biggest one right now. So issues around data privacy, they're not going to go away, and they're becoming exacerbated because one of the hard trends that we're seeing in the world today, a hard trend being a future fact, is that there's more data. Everything is generating data. Your refrigerator is generating data. Your washing machine is generating data. Your phone is generating data. You're generating data. Every application that you use is generating data. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of data, right? And we saw this try to be addressed with GDPR in the European Union last year. And, there's been talk ever since that the U.S. is going to move to something similar, if not complementary. And so it's something that companies are thinking about, it's something that governments are thinking about. Data is a big issue, right, on a lot of different fronts. And, finally, one thing I will mention is what are, society as a whole, what are they going to think when their tax return data is married with their Facebook data, which is married with their Alexa data, because Alexa's recording you in your house, right? And this is kind of very Big Brother-ish, but, is society really going to want their tax return data being out there and being used, to be marketed to or to be sold to or anything like that? I don't know. So long story short, be careful when using free services because that is your data, right? You own that. You should own that. You should want to own that into the future. And I think there's going to be a place for live tax return preparers in the future. So those are my final thoughts about that. Anyway, let's connect. Chris@BetterWayCPA.com, 843-608-0298. That's the phone number. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Quora, Instagram, and Pinterest. Feel free to reach out to me on all those platforms. I am active and out there. You can find me if you want to. Right? That's it for me this week. I will look forward to speaking to you next time.